Magnus the Red was born into a universe that measured existence in absolutes, yet demanded flexibility from those who could bend reality itself. From the moment he emerged as the 21st son of the Emperor, Magnus bore the weight of foresight, power, and inevitability. Unlike his brothers, whose paths were more straightforward, Magnus's path was laden with paradox, moral ambiguity, and the ceaseless tension between loyalty and self-preservation. He was a Primarch who could perceive threads of the future invisible to all others, yet that perception did not grant him control. It granted him awareness of catastrophe without recourse, insight without sanctuary. His intellect was vast, his empathy profound, and his power unmatched. But these qualities became chains in a galaxy that demanded obedience over understanding. Magnus did not seek war. He did not crave power. He sought comprehension, mastery of the warp, and above all, preservation of his sons, of knowledge, and, paradoxically, of the Imperium he served. The Emperor's edicts against psychic practice were not mere restrictions. They were condemnations of Magnus's very nature. To obey fully would be to annihilate the essence of the Thousand Suns, a legion bred for understanding the warp and its infinite possibilities. Yet to resist even in subtle ways was to risk being branded heretic, a term that would come to define his existence. Magnus tried to negotiate this impossible balance through foresight and persuasion. He attempted to warn the Emperor of Horus's corruption, sending cryptic messages through the warp, crafting warnings in the only language he knew, prophecy and magic. These warnings were intercepted, misunderstood, or outright dismissed. Every step he took toward loyalty was reframed as rebellion. Every effort to avert catastrophe was twisted into evidence of treachery. In the eyes of the Imperium, he was guilty before action. In reality, he was ensnared by inevitability. The Burning of Prospero was the manifestation of this cruel paradox. When the Space Wolves descended upon his world, Magnus faced the ultimate moral trap. He could obey the Emperor fully, abandon his sons to fire and steel, and preserve the abstract notion of imperial law, or he could intervene to save the Thousand Suns, risking his soul and his standing with the Emperor. There was no right choice, no solution that preserved both duty and loyalty. Magnus acted to protect what he could, the lives and potential of his legion. He attempted to shield the Emperor from his own ignorance, to warn and intervene in ways that only someone of his perception could conceive. The narrative of betrayal was a construct of circumstance, a judgment made without understanding of the impossibility inherent in the decision. Magnus's tragedy is compounded by the nature of knowledge itself. He was cursed and blessed with the ability to perceive causality across multiple strands of time, yet foresight did not grant freedom from consequence. To know the future is not to be free from it. It is to be tormented by the certainty that actions, no matter how precise, can only delay or shape an outcome, not escape it. Every intervention Magnus attempted carried unforeseen consequences, a cascade of unintended effects that the Imperium would never comprehend. He could foresee Horus's corruption, yet he could not prevent it without defying the Emperor's edict. He could preserve his legion's knowledge, yet that knowledge became a tool for his condemnation. He acted with clarity, empathy, and inevitability, and yet he was labeled as the architect of betrayal. Magnus's relationship with the Emperor is central to understanding his actions. The Emperor in his ambition to safeguard humanity, demanded loyalty to abstract law above personal judgment. Magnus, in his attempt to serve, interpreted loyalty differently. To Magnus, loyalty was protection, preservation, guidance, and understanding. To the Emperor, loyalty was obedience, silence, and compliance. The divergence was not malicious, it was philosophical, almost ontological. Their tragedy is not rooted in malice, but in irreconcilable interpretation. Magnus did not defy the Emperor out of pride. He defied circumstance to uphold the only principles he could reconcile with action. Prospero itself became the stage for this philosophical and moral collision. The Thousand Sons, a legion devoted to knowledge, magic, and psychic mastery, were painted as heretics in the wake of the Emperor's mandate. The Space Wolves' assault was framed as righteous justice. Magnus's defense was framed as rebellion. Yet the act of defending one's home, one's people, and the knowledge essential to the Imperium's long-term survival is never morally simple. Magnus did not act for personal gain. He acted for preservation, for foresight, for understanding. The fire of Prospero did not reveal sin, it revealed inevitability. Pause here. Consider the magnitude of the decision Magnus faced. Imagine knowing the fates of millions, the corruption of a favored son, the destruction of entire worlds, and being asked to choose a path that honors duty while preserving life. Could any Primarch have chosen differently? Would obedience have been morally defensible? Could betrayal have been righteous? Comment below your thoughts, because the complexity of Magnus's position is not a matter of right or wrong. It is a mirror reflecting the limitations of choice in a universe defined by inevitability. The aftermath of Prospero demonstrates the cruel efficiency of the Imperium's moral calculus. Magnus survived, scarred in body and soul, cast into exile, yet unbroken in spirit and intellect. The Thousand Sons were scattered, their knowledge fragmented, their loyalty tested beyond measure. Yet Magnus's mind remained intact, his foresight undiminished, his understanding of fate unshaken. The Imperium labeled him a traitor. The Warp recognized him as a force beyond simple categorization. His actions, viewed from any human lens, might appear flawed. From the lens of cosmic inevitability, they were the only choices available. Magnus's embrace of chaos was not a descent into ambition, nor a surrender to temptation. It was the natural alignment of his abilities, knowledge, and circumstance with a reality that the Imperium could neither understand nor accommodate. Chaos offered him the freedom to act in accordance with foresight and loyalty simultaneously, without the impossible moral constraints imposed by obedience to the Emperor. To suggest he fell is to misinterpret alignment with inevitability as moral failure. Magnus's alignment was pragmatic, inevitable, and consistent with the principles he had upheld from the beginning. Magnus's story underscores the complexity of morality in a universe defined by power, foresight, and consequence. Right and wrong are human constructs, simplistic in the face of infinite threads of causality. Magnus acted with intelligence, with foresight, with loyalty, defined by preservation rather than blind obedience. His decisions were constrained, yet deliberate. His foresight became a burden, yet one he bore with diligence and care. Every act of perceived heresy was a calculated response to an impossible scenario, a mitigation of disaster, rather than an instigation of it. The Emperor's reaction to Magnus illustrates the peril of human judgment when faced with incomprehensible knowledge. Where Magnus saw inevitable catastrophe and sought to minimize harm, the emperor saw defiance and misinterpreted action as disloyalty. The gulf between comprehension and perception is the essence of Magnus's tragedy. He acted morally, logically, and with the long-term good in mind, yet the short-term lens of judgment imposed upon him rendered him guilty. This is not the failure of Magnus. It is the failure of those who cannot perceive beyond immediacy, who judge action without understanding context, consequence, or inevitability. Magnus's narrative is intertwined with themes of inevitability, foresight, and tragedy. He is not a villain in the classical sense, nor a hero whose choices are universally laudable. He exists in the space between certainty and consequence, a primarch whose moral compass operates on axes invisible to others. His story forces us to question the nature of choice, the burden of knowledge, and the definition of loyalty. He demonstrates that in a universe governed by forces beyond comprehension, moral purity is impossible, yet action remains necessary. Magnus did not act out of pride, ambition, or desire for power. He acted out of necessity, empathy, and understanding. The Imperium's condemnation of his actions reflects the limitations of perspective, not the flaws of decision-making. To deny Magnus's moral integrity is to deny the possibility of reasoned action under impossible circumstances. His foresight, knowledge, and loyalty were weapons against catastrophe, yet in the calculus of judgment, they became indictments. Every choice he made was consistent with the principles he held, the responsibilities he bore, and the knowledge he possessed. To evaluate him without understanding the depth of foresight, the breadth of consequence, and the inevitability of circumstance is to misread history itself. The lasting legacy of Magnus the Red is a meditation on morality, inevitability, and the consequences of knowledge. He exemplifies the tragedy of foresight without freedom, of understanding without acceptance, of loyalty without recognition. The narrative that paints him as guilty obscures the essential truth. Magnus did not betray. He acted as the situation demanded, constrained by forces and circumstances beyond the understanding of those who judged him. His story is not a cautionary tale of hubris or temptation. It is a testament to the impossibility of right action in a universe governed by inevitability, perception, and consequence. Magnus did nothing wrong because the universe never allowed him the right choice. Every path was constrained by paradox. Every action weighed by consequence. Every intention misinterpreted. He acted not for himself, but for the preservation of knowledge, the protection of his sons, and the mitigation of catastrophe. The fire of Prospero, the condemnation of the Imperium, and his alignment with chaos are not indicators of moral failure, but indicators of the impossibility of moral simplicity. Magnus's story challenges the binary constructs of guilt and innocence, heroism and villainy, obedience and rebellion. It demonstrates that the most tragic figures are those who act with understanding in a universe that refuses comprehension. Magnus the Red is the embodiment of impossible choice. His intellect, empathy, and foresight made him a victim of circumstance, yet his actions preserved as much as they could. He is not guilty. He is not a villain. He is a figure defined by tragedy, inevitability, and moral ambiguity. To understand Magnus is to understand the limits of perspective, the weight of foresight, and the cruel calculus of consequence. His story is not one of wrongdoing. It is the story of a mind and soul navigating the impossible, striving for preservation in a universe that punishes insight with fire. Magnus did nothing wrong, because there was no right choice.